I've been a fan of the Preacher comic series for years. So when I heard that they were making an AMC adaptation of the comics, I was hesitant at best. Okay, I was worried they were going to fuck it up. I was really worried they were going to fuck it up. Thankfully, I've been pleasantly surprised so far. They've done a damn good job at this point. This video is just about casting, my impressions of the casting, and just kind of where I think the characters stand compared to their comic book versions. Let's start with Jesse Custer. He's played by Dominic Cooper, and before the show, I think I had seen Cooper in one thing, Dracula Untold. And I'm going to be perfectly honest when I say that movie could have been not terrible. And it wasn't terrible, it just wasn't very good. At least it brought some dignity back to vampires after Twilight turned them into sparkling walking emo vaginas. But from what I can tell, Cooper has been doing a really good job giving a multi-layered performance. And we just have to see where he takes the character from here, man. But so far, as a British actor, I haven't heard him break his stride with his Texan accent, and he has really brought a certain energy to Jesse that I really think that he does embody this character as the actor that played Jesse should. Next is Cassidy, played by Joseph Gilgun. This was one of the most important characters for them to get right for me because Cassidy is one of my favorite comic characters of all time. He's a hard-drinking, drug-using, womanizing Irish vampire. He was also a source of a lot of comedy. Cassidy had to be perfect. I'm glad that Joseph Gilgun has fucking nailed it. And not just nailed it, he is Cassidy. He's exactly what I hoped he would be. I also really like the fact that they've treated his vampire status as a, oh, by the way, he's a vampire. He is a shit-talking drunk who happens to be a vampire. It's not even the most interesting thing about him, and it's not treated as such. That is handled perfectly. Next, I want to talk about Tulip, a character that seemed to cause a bit of a stir when the cast of the show was announced, because Ruth Negga, the actress portraying Tulip, is black, while Tulip in the comic was a blonde white woman. The fact that they chose a black actress for Tulip instead of a white one is a non-issue for me. All I cared about was that she could play Tulip and do the character justice. Ruth Negga has pulled it off. She is Tulip. She embodies Tulip. Any worry I had that she couldn't play the character was quashed in the pilot episode. The main reason I worried about Tulip's casting is that I had never seen Ruth Negga in anything before Preacher, so I had no idea what kind of an actress she was. She's a tough, smart, takes no shit, and gives no fucks, exactly the way Tulip was meant to be. To those fans that didn't think a black actress couldn't play the character, she can, and she is. Next up is Sheriff Hugo Root, played by W. Earl Brown. In the comic, Sheriff Root was a low-down, rotten, irredeemable asshole. He always had a bad attitude, he was always dismissive and ashamed of his son Arseface. He was a dick, a huge annoying dick at that. In the show, he's played by veteran character actor W. Earl Brown, and I'm a big fan of Brown's work over the years, especially his portrayal of Dan in Deadwood. Brown's portrayal of Sheriff Root is very different than his comic book counterpart. He isn't a constant prick to everyone, he isn't completely ashamed and dismissive of his son, and he even seems to give a damn about him. He seems to genuinely care for his son and worry about the way he's treated. Now, Sheriff Root in the show is not very intelligent, nor is he a particularly good sheriff. Those are two things the comic version of the character and the TV show version share. But W. Earl Brown brings a soul to the character that the comic book version just didn't have. This is one character that I think is an improvement over its comic book counterpart, and I'm curious to see how certain scenes from the comic play out with this different version of the character in the show. Number 5 is Arseface, played by Ian Coletti. So, another actor I'd never heard of before this show. Arseface got his nickname after trying to blow his brains out, and after surgeries attempting to restore the damage to his face, they failed and left him looking like his face was part asshole. Yep, the name really says it all. If you think his face looks fucked up in the show, you should see it in the comic because he looks much worse. The makers of the show were much more kind to little old Eugene than illustrator Steve Dillon was when he drew him for the comic book. Ian Coletti plays him with a sort of boyish energy that you can't help but be charmed by. He seems so innocent that it's hard to imagine he once stuck a shotgun barrel in his mouth and pulled the trigger. Overall, I think the actor has played him well and has made him a likable character. The comic version was likable too, even though he was so fugly his appearance alone made people sick to their stomachs. The final character I wanted to talk about is the Saint of Killers, played by Graham McTavish. In the comic, the Saint of Killers is essentially death. He only gets woken up when heaven needs lots of people to die, and usually that's when they just need to kill one person, like Jesse Custer. When he is awakened from his eternal slumber in the comic, he literally kills everything he sees. His 6-shooter Colts are not capable of missing a target, and they never run out of ammo. Graham McTavish, a British actor who has been in a ton of movies and TV, but I remember him most as Nicey Ackerman from Red Dwarf. If you haven't watched Red Dwarf, you should. It's been on since the 80s, and it's still being made even though it's been cancelled I don't know how many times. But if a show has been brought back from the dead as many times as Red Dwarf has, there must be a reason. There's probably a reason. I just can't think of why. Maybe it's good or something? Anyway, he talks very little, and very soon you'll see that he is probably the biggest mass murderer in the universe. Like I said before, he kills everything that moves. If you like this video, great. If you didn't, cool. I'm not sad or anything. Like I'm not gonna cry or anything. I'm not gonna cry. I'm not. Not gonna cry.